Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ready, Set, Action. Today you're joining Debra Horowitz and myself, Kristina Witmer. We're looking forward to discussing building trust with user-generated content today. So stay tuned.
Hi,
So,
everyone. Hello.
hello, it's
Happy.
Halloween week.
Yes, it is the end of the month. Oh my gosh, so many different things happening. I know we were talking just now about the craziness going on between work and personal lives this time of year. So hopefully this content will be something that is relevant and timely, and always good to be thinking about as we head into the holidays, when it might have a little bit more quiet time maybe to actually think about how do we develop this for the new year and what's going to be our strategy, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um, User generated content, it sounds very official. But it's been around for a long time. We've all
Yes,
seen it in, white papers and case studies, right? And testimonials. So it's just putting a spotlight on how do we really go after it rather than wait for it to happen organically.
yep,
And so I'm really excited to do this session today and talk through the three tips that we see as really creating some action steps for our audience.
for sure, for sure. So, yeah, I'll dive into tip number one here.
Yay!
So,
Okay.
tip number one is thinking about encouraging and incentivizing user generated content, the creation of it. So, I would encourage any new business, growing business, small business to do this as soon as possible, because you want to set a culture of this. Like, you want to make this feel very normal early on, and you want to just it's part of what you do, whether you know we've talked about this before, if it's asking for referrals, if that's just how you do business, this is the same thing, and it actually will support sales, retention. It supports so much that I can't overestimate enough how important this is. So when you think about any sales cycle and you're trying to get customers, like, think about us, think about people out there. They're bombarded with marketing and messages of services and things like that, that when you see something that is client and customer driven, and there's a difference between the fake stuff and the real stuff. Usually you can spot it pretty quickly, but when you see real customers engaging, communicating, sharing things, it makes a big difference in how you start to warm up to the brand. And so that's why it's very important. And so what you want to do from the beginning is to, when you start working with someone, you know, talk about where they are, what they're feeling, how they're doing, and say that you want to get incremental case studies, stories, testimonials about projects. If you have longer term retainers, set that expectation that you're going to get some feedback quarterly or things like that. Make it so normal that it becomes a conversation, and also let them know that you may use this. If they don't want to have their name associated with it, then you can start looking at working with a retail customer doing this. And then if anybody ever wants a referral, they can direct them directly to that. But start thinking about how you're going to use that content. So what happens is when customers create content about your brand, so it could be, hey, can you go give me a review on Google My Business? Can you give me a review here? Can you go to a certain directory, which is important to me, whether it's Clutch or G4 or whatever, G2, I think, whatever those are, start to get into the habit of those. And so what you have is people start, it's a big deal when someone is publicly saying they would work with you, right? I was talking to a client recently about the referral program they have, and she was saying how nobody really refers just for the money. Like, if that's what you do, that's all you do, that's one thing, but nobody just refers for the money, because you refer to things that are a good choice for that person. Like I don't want to refer you somewhere just so I can make a couple $100 and it's a horrible place, right? So
Yeah.
this concept and this mentality is really important to embrace and figure out how it's part of your everyday process. So there are different strategies for incentivizing it. I personally believe you don't have to always go in a financial or that realm. I think you just need to have this understanding. Any good client is going to want you to grow as a business, right? They want you to be there to serve their needs and other people's needs. So you need to just have that communication and understand why it's important. So, when you do it, it builds trust and credibility. So customers see that, they see someone else, and they may even reach out directly to that person, right? It's social proof. And the thing about social media, it's very disposable in certain ways. But if I'm going back to look at you as a prospective partner or a vendor for myself, social proof is there, right? I can see reviews, I might see some posts, I could do some searches for things. So it does that. In addition, it's huge brand awareness for your company when you have these people out there, speaking for you, posting different things. And then it also can really be helpful with SEO, right? Those reviews, Google My Business is still a huge, your profile is a huge factor in ranking and what people are seeing, and doubly for local. So twice as much important for local businesses. So some of the practical strategies you can figure out, like you really need to figure out, where does it fit in your process? When do you ask for these things and how do you use them? I like to get testimonial, a video recording, which then I can write up into a case study. And then I can put into small, so I got testimonial quotes and then have maybe some social clips. So I want 4 things from that one conversation, right? So I love to do that. So, you can use contests and giveaways to do it on a, depending how large your client base is. You can look at discounts. You can say, hey, we're doing a survey. If you want to get access to this survey, would you please give me, some stories or whatever it is. You can also feature these people, right? So your featuring of them might be helpful to them as well for exposure. So use that as a plus. And then the most important thing I said, just thank them. Just recognize and thank them. I appreciate this. This helps me. Thank you. Like it goes a long way. You may not realize how far that goes, but it goes a really long way. So, and I was thinking earlier about examples of how, maybe companies that have done this kind of stuff, and there's a bunch out there, but Starbucks is obviously a global brand. It's huge. They, they have like campaigns that they'll do, like white cup contests, the red cup contest, like different contests that they've done to just engage people, right? People, I don't know if it's still quite as popular as it was, but it's still there. Like people love to photograph their food and the things that they're drinking and the things that they're doing. So figure out, depending on your business, how that might work, and go from there. GoPro, I've seen a million things. Obviously, it's the thing you use for social, so it's a good fit.
That's a good one.
Those are some things, figure out how it might work with your company. Do they do their own events? How can you sort of piggyback on that? How can you help them and then they help you? So anyway, that was a bit of a ramble, but it's a bit about setting that into part of your process and then figuring out how to incentivize, which doesn't always mean money. So
that's very true. That's very true. And there is that give and take. And, while you were talking, I was thinking about that old saying, and I'm probably going to massacre it, but it's all about having people that talk about you when you're not in the room.
Yep.
And, that's what user-generated content really does for you. It gives you that validation when you're not in the room, or, when they just want to poke around a little bit before they, have that conversation with you, because they're just, trying to figure out, are you the right person that they should be talking to, or the right person you should be coming to for that particular product?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Well, that was aside from my extra rambles, I thought that was a good one. So tell me
Yeah.
what you're thinking for tip number 2.
So for tip number 2, it's taking all of that and then curating it and showcasing it strategically.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with what you were saying. You're taking one content item and looking at how do you repurpose that. You've got that interview of that client, that then you're going to put into all of these various things, case study, a testimonial. You can take a clip of that video and put it up on your website to bring home one certain point that you want to highlight, that type
Right.
of thing, right? So it's like really looking at how do you use it in a variety of different formats. One of the best practices that I've uncovered is, I haven't done it on my own site yet because I'm not at that point where I can really curate the masses, but having a dedicated user generated content gallery
Mm-hmm.
on your website.
Mm-hmm.
So you can drive people there. You can, you know, um, have any kind of navigation, like here's what they're saying, or, company reviews, or however you want to really name it, right? But have it have its own presence, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then you can segment that out by how do you display it? Is somebody writing a review? Is somebody, doing that testimonial on video, and all of those different segments, and really mix it up so that it looks like, wow, there's so much going on with this brand. When I land on that page, I get excited just by seeing the
Right.
different visuals that are there, right? And then, of course, that social media integration, right? And it's not just about posting it out there, but it's tagging that creator
Mm-hmm.
in that post, getting them to then come in and say, yeah, I'm so glad we've got this ongoing relationship, or I
Mm-hmm.
used you for this and I'll be back next time I need XYZ, type of thing. Just getting them to engage in real time after
Mm-hmm.
you've put that social media post up there, I think is so important. And then also just continue those conversations with anybody else that might be coming on and taking a look, or
Mm-hmm.
or putting a comment up. And then I love to use the different snippets and things in email marketing,
Mm.
and I just think that that's an extra way of curating it and really spotlighting it to your target audience. So you're pushing it out there. You're not just
Right.
waiting for them to come on social media and discover it, but you're actually being proactive with it,
Mm-hmm.
in that method. And that helps to build credibility and trust, especially when you're reaching out to somebody that has never heard of your brand
Yeah.
before, doesn't know who you are. And then if you have a product page or a service page that talks about what you deliver to
Mm-hmm.
that potential client, then being able to kind of marry, the client experiences with what you're offering on those pages,
Right.
it really helps, because if they're just landing on that page from somewhere out there in the internet, then you can really speak to what the experience was
Mm-hmm.
with those clients, and not wait for them to find you on another, or find that on another one of your web pages.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the strategic part of this, which that makes a lot of sense to me. I think as you get more and more of the, testimonials or the case studies built, especially testimonials like the shorter clips, you can direct clients on, hey, can you give me an overall testimonial, but can you also add a sentence about how specifically this, right? The
Yes.
discovery portion of our engagement, how it was that. Like you can
Yes.
break it down and then you might have multiple things. And then, like you were saying, depending on different web pages or emails, you can actually clip that part out and just say, here's, our discovery process is like this. Here's how a client described it, and how, like you can, strategically start looking at what you have. And that makes me think of this whole grid where you have, how do I support blank part of our service, and the things that support it, and start blocking those. So I like that.
Yeah. In our business, we use a lot of project documents, right, as we move along. So having somebody that can talk about what was that onboarding process, to work on that project together, and then how was the communication flow, asking all of those various questions, really outlining ahead of time the questions that you're going to ask to extract that information out of them, right, is so critical. Yeah.
Great. Anything else for that one?
I think that was it for that one.
Okay.
Also, always,
I knew it. I knew there was something.
Always get the permission to use the content, right?
Yes.
So I think that goes, most of us would think that by asking them for a testimonial up front, we're getting their permission, but just, double checking that and making sure that they're okay with it being out there on our social media, or where on the website, or wherever we want to put them.
Yeah. And that's a good opportunity to say, would you like me to tag you or the business?
Yeah.
It helps them understand how it might help them, right? So that, and maybe get them more engaged. So that's a good opportunity to get permission, and then say, how would you like to be referenced? Do you want to reference the company? What it is. So that makes sense. Permission is good.
Permission is good.
So for tip number 3, this is a bit about this kind of, always sort of, I think these tips sort of feed and snowball into a bigger effect, but talking about building trust through transparency and the community that can be built when you have transparency. So, there's a couple things here, but, transparency means that you're sort of open to the conversations that might happen out there online and with people. If someone does post a Google My Business review, you should respond to everything, right? You should say thank you. You can add some thoughts to it if you want to. It was great to work on blank, right? Like, you don't have to be super specific, but you can start using keywords that you want to feed into the marketing strategy that helped blank. Like, start feeding into the conversation, because when people see reviews, they often see the response too. And it will give a little bit more trust factor, because you're referencing something more specific. Like, thank you. This, project was, I don't know, just something that's personal and feels right. So I feel like that transparency, that humanity can really help with the community aspect of it. If it's a social post, if it's other things, let's say your company does a post sharing the testimonial, you as the owner might come in and say, and tag the person and say, I can't believe we made it through this, but oh my gosh, I'm so excited with the final product. I look forward to working with you again. Like, you can really humanize some of those things and push it into additional directions. If you have a team, you can ask them to engage internally as well, and start doing that, and start thinking about that as part of your process. The community part really does amplify the trust of it, and it makes a huge difference. So, this ties into, the openness, the honesty with customers about role of this content. So you're telling them this is important to you. You don't spend a $100,000 ad budget. This is what you do. You generate valuable, real, authentic conversations. So when they understand how you work and why it's important, sometimes they'll be more likely to engage. Talk about authenticity. Tell them how it's important. And if you start to build pages on your site, like you suggested, you don't have to polish their quotes so they sound like they've been written by an author, right? They need to be human. That's, so if I see different quotes and they have different tones and they sort of highlight things, even if they say, there was a moment where I was concerned we were never going to pull it together. And then, oh my gosh, I was so happy. like that's real, right? That's stuff
Yeah.
that we can all relate to, and it feels honest. It feels good when we're reading it. We rarely trust. You see things on Facebook feed, and everybody's like, "Great product! I love this! Oh my gosh, love it!" And you're just like,
Not.
and you just keep moving, right? So you
Right.
need something that triggers the authenticity. Even if someone says something crazy, it feels more real than like everybody saying, the same sort of cookie cutter in various ways. So
Yeah.
it's important to figure that out. So respond and engage. That's very important. Promptly, you need to be monitoring this stuff. Someone on your team needs to be monitoring and having thoughtful responses to the comments. Um, Tell them thank you. You can separately tell them thank you for what they're doing to help build relationships. Encourage them to share. Say, hey, here it is posted. If it helps you, it would definitely help us if you would share it. So kind of just have that open conversation. So, you know, the space on your website, the social media, make sure that's there. Make sure your process is, done that. We talked about some of the brands, which you can see how they're using it with hashtag strategies and encouraging things. And if you have any kind of incentivization, like products or gift cards or even donating to charity, like for everyone that does something,
Mm,
I'm going to increase our end of year donation to this charity. You can tag
yeah.
the charity, like find ways to really bring it all together like that. So all of these will build trust with your clients and with future clients.
And
Um,
don't be afraid to use humor.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It, humor makes us human.
Yes.
And if people want to work with people that they feel like they're going to get along with, they're going to have fun with whatever project or product they're, trying to purchase. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think that's very important. That's definitely one of the things I like to lead with, and hopefully people get my humor. I'm not sure they always will, but sometimes. But I guess I wonder, like, I know there are sometimes there's a reluctance of people to do this type of stuff. And I mean, sometimes with my experience, I work with different people, different levels at a company, right? So I might have someone higher up as a business owner that's approving my contracts and different things. But then when I'm actually doing day to day, maybe I'm working with a marketing manager or a different person, they might be super reluctant to engage because they don't see the value for themselves or the company, and they're just it they just don't they're just they're scared or something, like, so you might really need to have this conversation up with the top level person of how it might help you. And that's why I always try to get different types of testimonials from maybe the person I'm working with, maybe from the leader of that department who might see the reports, because it's good for me to see how are they feeling about it, how is that person, because you can't lose those relationships if you're dealing with a marketing person. You've got to find a way to keep a relationship, even if
Yeah.
it's a quarterly check-in with someone who actually signed the agreement in the first place, because
Yeah.
the question could be, hey, I want to make sure I'm giving you value, just let me
Right.
know. And that way, if you also say, hey, by the way, we're sharing this with reference to your company, if you want to engage, like, loop them in and be respectful of the person you're working with. But to some extent, they just may not realize how it helps everyone. um,
Right.
just depending on your relationship, you can kind of, you need to build those relationships as best you can. It's hard, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a big one. So
That's a good point because they're going to have a different viewpoint as to how you've brought value.
mhm,
The marketing manager might say, "Oh, this is great, saving me so much time because I don't know how to do half of this stuff and,
mhm,
whatever." And then, the CEO is looking at it like, "Okay, because of you, I've been able to build my brand or reach a new
mhm.
audience or, that type of thing." So, they're all going to have a slightly different viewpoint that they bring, and
Right.
that's going to just help you,
Mhm.
curate and kind of condense what your message is, depending on the various levels in that target
Right.
audience you're trying to reach.
Right. And
Hmm.
sometimes it means they didn't have to hire a different type of person for a
Yeah.
specific role, which is very stressful as an owner and other, is that you've got, with a vendor, unfortunately, there's a little bit of a, you can slice it if you need to, it has to fulfill certain goals, where
Yeah.
adding someone to staff for a short-term thing can be super stressful. So
Mhm.
it really is something that is a different relationship. I think you captured that well. So um, anyway, so that's, I think that's it. Anything else to add or anything else to wrap up for this?
Don't be afraid. Just, ask. The worst they can say is no, right? And then you just move on to the next one. Or if you don't have any, then, try to find someone in your life that can talk to you about you as a person, and put that
Mhm.
up on your website. How,
Yeah,
what kind of relationships do you build? How do you manage certain projects that they've seen you working on? Whatever
yeah.
that can be to get started. I think getting started is the hard part, right?
Totally agree. Totally agree. So to recap, we've got encourage and incentivize, right? Tips for that. We've got, curate and showcase the content strategically. And then we've got build trust through transparency and community. So 3 powerful tips that should get you guys going. And I think we're wrapped for today. We really want to say thank you for joining us. I hope you will join us next time for Ready Set Action with Debra Horowitz and Kristina Witmer. You can follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spotify, and we will see you next week.
Bye.